I would love to, alrighty. And
Perfect.
then I would love to come here and then, start this presentation with all of you. And so as Nadia said, I do have a couple of research interests, but then today, what I'm presenting is mostly on textbook that we are working on. So I'm working with two other professors in landscape architecture from University of California, Davis, and University of Kentucky. And we are working on a textbook, and then this is one chapter of it. And then we presented in SILA last year, and then I catered it more, add a little bit more visualization components, as I figured, you guys are here to learn about visualization. So yeah, so today I'm presenting kind of like a textbook format of visualizing people's behavior in the past, present, and future. So can you see the slides moving? You're able to see the next slide,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, so this is the today's presentation structure. We will first talk a little bit about the significance of visualizing people and behavior, because in landscape architecture, we're visualizing a lot of other things, ecological succession, environment, but then we didn't really visualize people and behavior as much. And then this is actually a particular interest of me to really understand the social components of landscape. So today we're going to talk about how to visualize people. And then we're going to introduce different ways of visualizing and how it evolves over time, like where it begins from, and then now how are we using it in landscape architecture. And then we're going to talk about the trends, issues, and digital integration. And then I'll present one case studies that I did in California, and then to integrating some of the very cutting edge technology and then how we can use that to encourage community participation, and then a conclusion. So let's go ahead. First, the significance of visualizing. So there are basically two of the very key important elements within it. First is really to seek effective guidelines, like how people are using the space. If you pay attention to it, it helps you to make a better designer. So the picture on the left is actually by William White. He's a very famous American journalist and sociologist. So I think you all probably are already familiar with his work. He stands on the top of the ceiling of the New York cities in these high skyscrapers. And then he used the video recordings and then to really study how people are using the public spaces in New York. And then he found a lot of interesting discoveries, right? And then one of the important quote that he said is people tend to sit most where there are places to sit. So he found out people do sit in, the benches or the seat walls that we created. And then people sit according to the sun, right? That is the previous, let me show you. The previous image is showing you, as you can see, people are sitting on the stairs, but then where the sun moves, the people move with the sun. So this is like one of the example. By learning where people are using the space, how people are using it, helps you to become a better designer. So this is one of the way that is very important to visualizing people and behavior. Another thing is that is the second reason is that the environment and people is really having this dialectic effect. The environment impact the people, and then the people also impact the environment. So visualizing the landscape is actually a product of people and behavior. So this is another reason of it. And then in our book, we think the visualizing of people and behavior provides direct answers to spatial planning and design inquiries. As design spaces and people evolve, scholars and practitioners can also associate how people have used or are using design landscape accordingly. So in these ways, visualization helps to interpret through observing behavior and behavior traces that may also extend to larger scales and activities. Through continued efforts and adjustment to methods and technology, visualization supports spatial design efforts over time and during different social and cultural contexts. And then this helps us to learn how the landscape should be changed or redesigned. So today I'm going to introduce 6 different visualizing methods. some of them you probably are familiar with, and some of them probably are not that familiar with. If you're not familiar with, I encourage you to start, adopting them and then see whether it helps you, to think the design process better. The first three methods, reading the landscape, direct observation, and behavior mapping, is really we record whatever we see in the site. And then the last three methods, community mapping, scored work, and Photovoice, is we encourage the community members to visualize something for us. So just to give you a little heads up, and then that's what we're going to learn today. First, reading the landscape. This is very straightforward, and I feel like this is actually already many of our landscape architecture students already are doing, is to deliberately looking, sketching, and questioning the everyday landscape that we see. So this method is actually first introduced by May Thielgaard Watts, who actually is very active in the 1950s and 60s. So she is the first kind of a landscape architect researcher. And then she started to really sketch out whatever she see in the environment, and then to use that as a reference to understand the environment, and then including some of the things that we learned today. So this is an image that showed her work. So she is using a comparison of different elements in this drawing, as you can see. So this is the thing in the back. As you can see, there is a human figure here, and then several of the grass next to it. This too shows the scale of the plants that she is recording, and then the comparable height of the plants versus the people. So as you can see here, the saltwater cool grass is actually just like a human height. So it's like 6 feet or 7 feet. And then when she goes into the inland, the grass start to become shorter. As you can see here, it's like knee high. And then it goes up to, the chest height, and then later on into, the top of the chain. So it's actually, the image in the back is showing, the comparable scale of the plant species that she's observing, comparable to the human figure. And then the things in the front is the zoom in details of that plant, and then how it goes over time, and then so that you can see characteristically how it looks evolving. And then, so she actually, this is to illustrate whenever you start to see cattails, the salt water disappears. So this is like the very first, scholar who is recording the environment, and then in relation to the landscape. But today, we are using the reading the landscape technique to record all other things, not just the environment, but also human interventions. And then this is what I'm going to talk about. And so when you go to a site, when you're doing a site analysis, you are looking deliberately about the different elements on the site, right? Like what's the relationship between the plants and the building? When is the building built, right? What materials they're using? What is the history, like the history behind it? Those are the things you want to pay attention. And then we encourage people, whenever you go to an unfamiliar city, you can actually design a route to yourself, and then deliberately well-planned transportation routes within frequent lancing stops for observation. So if you are unfamiliar with the city, draw a line that is cutting through the periphery to the center of the building, to the center of the city, and then to the other suburb area. And then divide, like say, every 10 minutes, there's a stop. And then you just get out of your car and then start to look around to see what landscape you are looking at, and then what's the history behind it. And then you do this field journaling, including observations and sketches and photos, and then you follow up with the research. And this is actually a very quick way to understand a city. So this is one of the, when I was still a student, one of the example that we did is to, this is like a spine that we get from the center of the city. So this is in Mexico City. And then we cut a line directly from the center of the city all the way to, this is Xochimilco, which is the it's the very south of the city boundary. And then we cut through like the different sections to really analyze what's the architecture typologies of it, and what's the market type associated with this architecture typology. So this is one example to really integrating the combination of reading the landscape, observing, journaling, and then research all together. All right, so that was the first method. And then the second method is very straightforward, but probably you are not paying attention to it quite closely, is the direct observation. Direct observation for sure is a method to collecting evaluative information in which the evaluator watches the subject in his or her usual environment without altering that environment, right? So you're not touching the site, you are not interfering what they're doing, but you're just observe what they're doing. But then there are several components of it to really have an effective observation. You see there, you look at it, that's like a very casual observation. But you should really pay attention to who, what, and where. This is according to Yang Gao, a very famous urban designer. And then so he wrote this book, How to Study Public Life, and then you can actually retrieve it online. They have a free digital version. So in his work, he specifically encouraged, the researchers or the urban researchers to see who are actually using the space, who are showing here and who are not. So this is one case that he mentioned in Bryant Park, New York City, when they are studying the safetiness of the park. They are trying to use the appearance of women to become an indicator to see if the park is safe or not. So whenever it reaches around like 50% of the park users are women, that means the safety is okay. But then if this number drops down when there are a dramatic drop of women park users, that means there is something wrong with the park. And then this one is in Copenhagen, and then to study the microclimate of the environment. So this is, again, use a photograph. You can actually very clearly to see people are actually sit under the sun rather than in the shadow. So this tells you something about where people prefer to sit down in different weathers. So you can actually plan your trip, like, when you are designing a place, set a set of time, observe it in the morning, in the lunchtime, in the afternoon, and maybe at night to see who are using the space, what activities are they, where they are using the spaces. And then this is another example of their firm to study. And then this is exactly the same places, but you can see, in certain times, and this is relatively, in a autumn or summer where people are still wearing short sleeves, and then there are events going on, people are actively using the space. And when there are cold winter time, and then the space is not really used. And then so in landscape architecture, you can use observation integrating with visualization to showcase some of the ideas you are trying to highlight. So this is a ASLA student winning award where they actually are mapping out all the homeless populations in Los Angeles. So they use a collage and then highlighting several of the activities that they see on the streets. And then they did, follow up with the research to support what they're trying to arguing. So again, visualization is a very good way to do, site analysis and then use that to showcase or to argue the potential problems associated with the site. All right, so we have talked two so far. The third one I want to introduce, it's not very common, but it's a very common method and it's very valuable method, especially in sociology. And it's a method that I use a lot. It's called behavior mapping. So behavior mapping is a research tool used to observe and record behaviors in a particular setting at a particular time. And it can be either place-based or individual-based, depending on whether the focus of the observation is to identify locational or temporal patterns of behaviors. So this is one of the example. So you code people. You basically have a previous select of codes, what activities you want to observe in this place. And then in this case, the researcher want to map out where people wait, where people look, where people sit, and where people interact with each other. So as you can see, this start to generate a pattern of how people are using the space. People sit according to some of the corners and probably where the benches are. People interact with each other along the pathway. People look at, the events clustering here, and then people are waiting in every spectrum, every corner of this area, and probably in a relatively open area. So this tells you how people are using the space and then what activities they are doing. And then the history behind it is also dated back like 50 years ago when Henry Stenoff, which is a professor from University of North Carolina, and then which is also the co-founder of ADRA, the Environmental Design Research Association. They first write this article about behavior mapping and introducing this whole theories of a study of the site. So you need to, record it in different times of the day, and then in several days, a week or a month, and then in special occasions, and then you need to first decide what activities you are observing, what are the population, you want to code it. And then, so this is like the very first behavior mapping that we have on record in landscape architecture. It looks like this. And then as you can see, the bigger the bubble, the bigger the dots means there are more activities going on. And as you can see, this is how the people are using the space. They cluster around this area. And then right now, landscape architects also use it to evaluate the before and after performance of a place. So this is by Matluba Khan, which is a PhD student from University of Edinburgh, but right now she's already a professor in Europe. And then so she did this project and then to do the redevelopment of elementary school courtyard in Bangladesh. And then this is like before the children are just using, the empty space and there is not much on. But then after she designed it, there are more children. First, you can see the comparison of there are more children using the space for sure. And then people are using it, having more programs associated with the different elements. And then she has a series of research to showing how it actually benefits both the learning and playing experience of the children. And then this is another drawing of my previous classmates and Saswati does. So she is actually using, she's using it the opposite, not the opposite way, but she's doing this proposed behavior mapping of showcase, how people will be using your space after your redevelopment. So this is her imagination of how people will be using the space under, a social events where people cluster in this central plaza, or in like say, daily life where people maybe cluster in this night market area, or in special occasions, people use this space. So you can actually use behavior mapping in your proposed plan to show how your space is going to be used. All right, so that is the three different methods that we introduced. And again, that is when the researcher, that is you, to look through and analyze the activities on site. And then now we will start to introduce some of, the methods that we encourage the communities to give us the data, to give us the visualization that we are looking for. The first one I'm going to introduce is community mapping. And then, so community map is like a map that is collaboratively, contributed by the residents of a particular place. And this is really familiar when first, when the Google Earth was not introduced yet, when we probably couldn't have a clear picture of how the site looks like when you're going to a place. And then it's also very useful when we don't have a local map. When there is a large portion of area, a lot of mountainous, and then site survey is hard, you can invite the communities to draw the map for you, and then it's a collaborative effort. But then right now, community map, it can also be used to ask specific populations to share their individual experiences, such as their sensory or cognitive understanding of a place. So this is a picture showing children's favorite places in Old Town. in UK, because they're trying to protect it from this massive redevelopment the government is trying to imposing on them. And then so they invite all the residents to draw their favorite places, their favorite memories associated with the old town, to use it as, you know, a collective effort to show the government that there are certain of the buildings and architecture and landmarks that they're trying to preserve as a community. And then, so landscape architecture professor Wendy Hester, after he retired, he actually moved to North Carolina. And then, so this is a project he did with the residents of Manteo in North Carolina. And then, so he invite everyone to be on board. And then, again, this is also a city trying to redevelop the city, but then without much information of where are the places people are attached with. So he invited all the residents to mark out where is their secret places, where are the places that they treasure. They don't want it to be changed at all. And then so they actually mapped out this the little hearts, as you can see. Those are like there are quite a few landmarks near the harbor. Is where the people really have attached feeling to it, and then by no means they want that to be changed. There are also near the coast, there are sacred areas people want to preserve, and then there are also several of, you know, the resident the buildings that people want to protect under this redevelopment. So this is one way, you know, people can you can invite the community members to help you define where are the areas that you want to, you know, redevelop or don't touch. And then this is all based on the visualization. And then that was the first one of the community ones. The second one is score work. So score work is developed first by Lawrence Halprin, the famous landscape architect, and his spouse and dancer, Anna Halprin. So they have this idea that we are designing a space is not just a, you know, design a space and people ride the vehicle, people as vehicles and then use it the way that you want it to use. But then actually, you know, people are the open score, and then people can actually have their own interpretation of the environment. And then people can use the space as the way they want it. And then they want to sense the space as the way they want it. So the score work actively choreograph people's movement and actions, and then can be used for understanding and influence people's movement through the environment. So this is one of the example that they did. So they kind of give a code of the experience and then ask people to map it out, how they're feeling the space by, you know, this is kind of the score, you know, this is like the music score or the choreography generated by different people. And then this is one way to understand the environment. And then it's also used visualization as, you know, as this agent to help the design, both the designer and the users to understand their experience of the site. And then there are some scholars also carry this idea further. And then this is by Dr. James Simpson from University of Sheffield. So I've been sitting in one of his lectures before. So he used this idea that people are wearing a camera and then record their daily experiences, going from, you know, their houses all the way to their work, and then what they see every day. And then he then color coded it, and then using a different code, using a different color to represent, you know, a segment of infrastructure, or the part of the sky that is blue, or, you know, a lot of other people that is another color, or the color of green, like the vegetation, that's another color. And then so he created this, he called it street DNA, which is, you know, to record the daily experience of different population. And this actually can tell you something about, you know, the daily experience of a person from, you know, the same routes. And then probably the people where they're looking is also different. And then what they're experiencing every day is very different. So this is a very interesting visualization way as well. Okay, the last one is Photovoice. And then this is I would say even more unfamiliar, probably to many of you. This is also a sociological method, and then it's a participatory action research. So it's rather than us taking the pictures, like rather than the interview taking a picture of the interviewee, you give the cameras to the community residents, let them take the picture of their daily life. So this is even more, participatory than, the schoolwork or this participatory community mapping that you still have some control of, define the places they go, or they are just participating in your research. But then the Photovoice is like you give the power to the citizen. So it is fundamentally different. So it is first developed by Caroline Huang, who is a professor of University of Michigan in the health department. So she first used this as a research tool to understand the health conditions of certain areas, especially rural areas. So as you can see, this is like the daily experience of those people. And then sometimes it's really hard for a scholar or for a researcher to understand this context without seeing what it means, what it means by it's a polluted water. But then the photo actually shows it out. This is how the quality of the water looks like. And then this is showing the children who are doing vaccination. So this is like the conditions of the health. When they're doing a vaccination, they just stand on the line, and then it's a very rough, cleaning process. And then there is probably not even a doctor that is doing this vaccination. So this is, again, very grassroots efforts to show the environment conditions and the behaviors. So today there are also a lot of, landscape researchers are using this as a method. So this is by Jeff Howe, who is a professor of University of Washington, Seattle. They're doing this Maynard Green Street, project, and then they invite people to post the pictures of, how they're using the site now, what is important to them, and then who are actually using this place. And then they found out that elderly people are using this space to talk to other people. So this is a reflection of their daily life. And then this is a step forward, I would say. Some people are utilizing social media and then the online technology to become a collective effort of something. So this is by Claire Nepawa, associate professor at University of California, Davis. So she had this project of hashtag overchanging climate. So their standpoint is that when we are talking about climate change, the image popped out in our head is, a polar bear that is standing on the top of an iceberg, or a dolphin, that is being killed by the warm temperature. But then people feel like it's really farther away. It's very far away from their daily life. So they use this hashtag Instagram effort to encourage people to really look at how the changing climate is reflected in their daily life. And then they invite people to post social media posts, and then they have this collective of images. And this is also using the full combination of the Photovoice method and then community mapping all together to become something that is powerful. All right, so we have talked about 6 different methods, and then they all are slightly very different. And then I would say they have their pros and cons. So I want to encourage you to think about, how much time you are having, how easily are people and behavior data attained, and then are the community engaged in this process? What's the relationship between the recorder and recordee? All those questions are what you should be thinking of to choose, what's the method you want to use to visualize people and behaviors. And then again, they all have, the objectivity of the data or the reliance on technology varies by the different method. All right, so now we're going to shift the gears and then start to talk about the trends issues and the conclusions of the current visualization, the current people and human behavior visualizing. So let's look at the behavior mapping again. So this is like the traditional ones of the behavior mapping that I just talked about, right? To map out where people are doing, what things, what group of people are they. But right now, because of all the technology evolves, we can record more data. So this is to showcase. This is actually also done by a scholar graduated from University of Edinburgh, Goliknik, and then so she actually mapped out how the skateboarders are using the space. So not just where they are located as a dot, but then how they are actually circulating in the plaza to showcase, more some of the movement that we are not easily captured beforehand. So now, the new trends is that we have relied on a lot of the new technologies for tracking and recording. And then this is a picture showing a UC Davis professor that is asking, the citizen scientists to contribute to the data where they actually see the roadkill. So whenever you see a roadkill, you will take a picture and then it's geolocated. And then you can upload the data and then tell the scientists where you actually see the roadkill. It helps the scientists to really locate where are the some of the environmental corridors that they need to preserve. And then this user engagement, as we have talked about, we can invite the communities to generate data and the visualization tools for us. And then we can also use virtual reality and other types of visualization methods to help us communicate design ideas. So this is a case study that I want to share with all of you. It's a case study that I've been participated with two other wonderful colleagues at University of California, Davis, when I was still a PhD student. It's led by Professor Brad Milligan. It's an associate professor in the Department of Human Ecology in the Landscape Architecture Program and Sustainable Environment Design Program at UC Davis. So we got this project that we start to participate in this project because California has this long-term plan to restore some of the marshland in some of the open water because we have lost 98% of the habitats due to farming, industrialization, urbanization, and all these processes. So the government agencies have been really carefully to want to restore some of the places. But so this is one of the example. This is called Frank's Tract, and then so this little portion is called Little Frank's Tract, and then this big body of the water is called Frank's Tract. It was a marshland way before, so all of this was marshland. But then later on, because of urbanization, because the massive levee building process in California, all of this land has been claimed as farming land, as you can see here. And then there are also urbanization started going on, encroaching here, as you can see. So these are all people. Some of them are million houses. Some of them are, but then like people are occupying the bank. And then a lot of residents has already been living here. And then part of the effort is also because the water issues. So the state of California is actually using the water of the North California, like they have a pumping station right over here, and then they're pumping the water all the way to the South California, which is Los Angeles area, and then this channel has been connected to the ocean, connected to the San Francisco Bay. So part of the effort to restore the marshland for sure, to increase the biodiversity for sure. But then another reason is that they want to build a marshland here so that the salt water coming from the Falls River will not be intruding into the old river, if that makes sense. Like they want to build a marshland here so that the water, when the tide goes in, they probably have some salt water, but most of the time it kind of block this area. so that the fresh water come from the mountains will go to the old river. So this is kind of like it's a very complex project. It has a lot of objectives associated with it. So this is the very first plan that without any community engagement, this is what they propose. This is very like a very straightforward answer is to just build a marshland over here. And then, then all the problems are solved and then build a levee across it so that, the water won't come into it and then it solve all of the problems. But as you can imagine, people are set on fire. All those people who are heavily rely on the water body will be, it is a huge, tremendous impact on them if you build a large right in front of their house, and then they suddenly lost all this open water in front of them. So it's a huge fire and a huge tension that has been built between the government agencies and the communities. And this is when we step forward and start to use visualization, community engagement to communicate this idea. So first thing first we did is to create a survey to understand how people are using this space. Again, to visualize people and behavior, right? What we are talking about today. So we generate this barcode and then a little flyer, and then we actually paste it everywhere along this, but then also, because this is an open body and all the water channels are connected, the people in San Francisco are also using this space. So we also put a flyer everywhere, where there are possible people would be using this waterway. And then they scan the barcode. They can actually be lead into this Maptionnaire, digital-based survey that we created. And then you can actually, this is a screenshot on my cell phone. You can actually grab, one of the dots and tell us where you recreate. Right? And then you can have another color dots tell us where you do other activities. And then you can also do hexagon, or you can actually do the lines to tell us where you navigate through. So this is using the technology to ask people's ideas and how they want to use the place. So this is the survey result. We collected more than 700 participants, and then they tell us where, how they actually actively using this water body. And then, as you can see, this is to show where people recreate across the different areas, where they will do boating, where they do canoeing, where they do fishing. People do fishing mostly around, around the edge of the open water. Where do people kayaking, all kinds of activities. And this is where people actively travel from the different, water channels. So as you can see in this image, it's very clear that people actively using this as a transportation corridor. And then there are two ways people use it the most. One is from this Foss River all the way to this Old River. Another way is people will land their boat along the harbor and then goes to the North Old River. So let's compare that to this. So that's why people are angry, because you actually block their travel paths. If you propose something like this, people are actively using this route and this route. And then what the government proposed first will directly impacting all of those people travel, and their daily experience. So, and then we also invite people to tell us where they think the marshland should be located. And then, this is not too surprise, the people don't want the marshland to be built right in front of their house. They actually want to push the marshland further away. They're okay with marshland, but then it shouldn't be in front of their households. So they also tell us, they think the marshland should be around this corner where there is no residents living here. And then even if they need to come across it, there is actually a travel path along here that they can go here and then go into this corner and then goes into the Old River. So they think the best place is here. And then, so according to some of this information that we gathered, we proposed 7 different concepts. And then, as you can see, most of the plants that we propose are pushing the marshland more or less on the side. There is only one that is really close to them, because this is the one that we have tested that meet the water quality issue. But then this is kind of the only one, and all the rest we push it to the back corner, to this the northeast corner of the open body. And then we have gone through a lot of processes of inviting the scientists, inviting the fish biologists, inviting the engineering modeling, and all of them. And then the progress keeps evolving of, making some of the minor tweaks and revisions of, some of the marshland need to be connected. The inland marsh channel shouldn't go from here, but it should go from, this corner to allow the fish to really come through. There are a lot of, and then where the wind, this is like local knowledge input, where the wind actually comes from this corner. So they want this to go a little bit inward, like a lot of things. And then as you can see, the ideas keep evolving and then reach something like this and this in the end. And then at the very last, we actually use this virtual reality to show people, because on the map, it still feels like there is a large portion of marshland, but then we use a virtual reality to show people the correct scale of, although, you're living here, but then you still have a large portion of water body in front of your house. And then the marshland is really gigantic, but then it's really far away from you. So I'll just show you a little video clip of what we did in the end. This is like a fly through of the proposed marshland that we are building. This is a little French tract, and then this is like the size of the beach that we will be creating. And again, most of the people are living in this, but as you can see, they still have a large body of open water in front of them. And then the navigable channel on the plan looks very small, but actually, according to here, you can see it's still very safe and then very wide for them to go through. There are different recreational activities now can be built. And then this is the inland marsh channel that is only good for kayaking. So the motorized boat will not be there. This is the other side where people also come through, and as you can see, large body of open water. And then they will have a beach in the middle of the open water, which actually adds a lot of recreational opportunities. And then they can keep going. And then again, this is the channel that is 100-meter wide. So it's actually, not narrow at all. The people who are using motorized boat can go easily in there. And then this is like a mooring field where people park their boats. And again, it's to show them the navigable channel, the inner marshland. And then finally, there's another mooring field and then the beach and day use area here. So yeah, so this is like to use the virtual reality to show them, let me see. Okay. All right, yeah, and then to show them, this is actually that plan, as you can see. And again, in the master plan, it looks like a huge marshland, but then in the virtual reality, you can actually see the scale of it in comparable to a ship or to a boat that you will be using. And then even if it looks dramatic, it is not, that impactful on your daily life. And then again, we invite the residents to post another round of the comments to us. This helps us to, narrow down what are the pros and cons of this method. All right, so in conclusion, today we have talked a lot. We have introduced 6 different visualization methods, including reading the landscape, direct observation, behavior mapping, community mapping, spore work, and photo voice. And I hope you will, it gives you some inspiration of how you want to utilize it in your design and research. And then you should choose the appropriate method based on your objective and then your time and the contribution. And then we also introduced how the method evolves through time and how it responds to the societal change. And then we also talked a little bit about the new trends and technology integration. And then some of the ethical and other considerations. This is the list, and then thank you so much for